Welcome back to our review and react channel. Today I share with you Galaxy S7. 2016 is the year that Samsung finally manages to bring everything together and create the near-perfect phone. The Galaxy S7 isn't as curvy as the Samsung Galaxy S7 Edge, nor as S-Pen-toting as the Note 7, but it's the phone most people should buy. There is of course competition coming from the iPhone 7, but the rumored headphone jack-lacking device hasn't got our blood whirling just yet. With its ace camera, curvy body, water resistance and stripped-back software, the Galaxy S7 could be the phone of the year. Design. After the massive, and much-needed, change in design direction Samsung took with the Galaxy S6 and Galaxy S6 Edge in 2015, all rumors pointed to things staying pretty much the same for the Galaxy S7. Well, it's not like Apple, HTC or Sony make drastic changes to their industrial design every year. And that's exactly the case here. Place the Galaxy S7 next to the S6 and you'd be hard-pushed to instantly pick which one is which. Frankly, this doesn't bother me in the slightest. The S6 was already one of the best-looking phones around, and the Galaxy S7 follows suit. Both the front and back are covered in Gorilla Glass 4, while a metal rim snakes in between. Two volume buttons sit on one side, with a lock/standby switch on the other. It's a clean look, with the back free from any markings aside from a Samsung logo. The camera lens now sits just about flush with the glass body too. This might seem a small change, but it makes a big difference. I can now tap out an email with the phone flat on my desk without it jumping and rocking from side to side. There is one notable design change on the back. The sides now curve ever so slightly, just like they did on the larger Galaxy Note 5, and it makes a huge change to how the Galaxy S7 feels. While the S6 felt harsh and rigid, the Galaxy S7 slips softly into my palm. It's so much more ergonomic and makes picking it up off a flat surface much easier. And the way the sides almost melt into the glass just looks damn cool. Good job, Samsung. It's an absolute fingerprint magnet, though. After a few minutes of use, the entire back becomes a grubby mess that needs wiping down with a microfiber cloth. Along the top is the nano SIM tray, which now holds a microSD slot, plus a microphone. The bottom houses the headphone socket, another microphone, a speaker and a micro USB port for charging. That speaker is one of the few missteps on this phone. It's downward facing, gets easily blocked by my hands when playing a game, and it sounds tinny and distorted at high volume. I guess front-facing speakers weren't included so the screen surround could be kept minimal, but it's still a disappointment when a speaker sounds this bad. It had been suggested that Samsung would make a big switch to the new, reversible USB-C connector that's already being used on the Nexus 6P, OnePlus 2 and LG G5, but it hasn't. To be honest, USB-C is more of a hindrance than a help at the minute. You can't use any of the cables you've picked up over the years, and it doesn't necessarily mean faster charging. It does mean the S7 isn't quite so future-proof, though. The front again has a clean look about it. The elongated home button still sits under the display, and it still juts out ever so slightly, rather than being concave like the E-phones. For me, this is a plus. It feels better pressing the Galaxy S7's home button than the iPhone 6s. Display. Close to perfection. That's the best way to describe the display on Samsung's Galaxy S7. Not much has really changed from the outgoing S6, but this still holds up as the best screen on a smartphone. It's still a 5.1-inch QHD panel with a 2560x1440 resolution, and just like every Galaxy flagship so far, it uses Samsung's Super AMOLED tech, rather than the more common LCD. AMOLED displays are a lot better at showing off blacks than LCDs. Instead of looking slightly gray and washed out, the blacks here are inky deep. Some say AMOLED screens produce colors that are too oversaturated, so reds will look way brighter than they should, but that isn't much of an issue here. And if you really prefer things toned down, there's a picture setting for that. Having so many pixels jammed into a relatively small space means you can't really spot one pixel from another, and that sharpness makes everything from gaming to watching YouTube an absolute pleasure. Play a round of Alto's Adventure or Monument Valley on this display and you'll instantly be drawn in by the crisp details and vivid color reproduction. I wouldn't normally watch a film on a screen this size, but the panel here is so gorgeous that I can't help getting lost in it. The one thing that has changed this time around is the addition of a new always-on display. Due to the way AMOLED screens work, they don't need to light up the whole display all of the time. They can select individual pixels and just show them, keeping everything else off. So, when the Galaxy S7 is locked, it can still show the time, date and a couple of bits of other information on the screen without eating through too much battery. It's a nice touch, and great for quickly checking the time when the phone is resting on your desk or a bedside table. But it's a good software update or two short of being really useful. First off, it'll only show notifications from a few apps. It's currently limited to Samsung's own messages, email and phone. If you, like me, regularly use WhatsApp, Gmail and Facebook Messenger, none of these will appear. That's a shame, and makes the notification side of things a lot less useful. I'd also like a lot more control over the mode. There's no setting to alter the brightness, which causes some problems when you're in a darker room, and aside from choosing whether or not you want a calendar showing, there's no customization allowed. It uses extra battery too. About 1 to 2% per hour, so 15% or so per day. It's just about worth it, but it could be so much better. My only gripe with the display on the Samsung Galaxy S7 is that, in sunny conditions, it can be quite hard to read, certainly more so than the LCD panel on the iPhone 6s. Even with the brightness jacked all the way up, you'll have to tilt the screen or find some shade to stop yourself squinting at it. Performance and hardware. Hugely powerful processor, Exynos in Europe, Snapdragon in US. Excellent speed at opening and closing apps. TouchWiz interface is refined again, and is much slicker. MicroSD slot is back for expanded memory. The Samsung Galaxy S7 is a flagship smartphone, so it comes as no surprise that it's packing a punch under all that metal and glass. Things aren't straightforward specs-wise though, as Samsung has deemed it necessary to produce two variants of the S7, with the difference being the processor inside them. The majority of the world, including Europe, will find a Samsung-made Exynos 8890 octa-core processor inside their Galaxy S7, model small, G930F, providing a huge amount of power. Those in the USA get something a little different, a Qualcomm Snapdragon 820 quad-core chip in model small, G930. The reason for this is that the 820 supports some vital LTE bands required for Verizon and Sprint customers, and the Exynos doesn't offer this. Now both processors are powerful, and with 4 GB of RAM backing each of them up, you'll have enough going on under the hood to not slow you down. However, I had access to both variants during my review, and running Geekbench 3 on them yielded some rather different results, with the Exynos toting Galaxy S7 coming out comfortably on top. The Exynos variant scored an average of 6542 on the multi-core test, while the Snapdragon 820 handset averaged 5398 on the same test. It's fair to say, then, that customers in America have a right to feel a little aggrieved, although in reality you're not going to notice the difference in day-to-day use. The bigger news here is that both variants absolutely smash their competitors. The Galaxy S6 managed to clock an impressive 4850, but it pales in comparison to its successor. As for the competition, the iPhone 6s recorded an about average score of 4417, the Sony Xperia Z5 came in at 4015 and the HTC One M9 only managed a lowly 3803. Meanwhile the Snapdragon 820, toting LG G5 set an average score of 5386, matching that of the S7 variant with the same chip. The HTC 10 managed 4962, which is miles below 2. Either Samsung has the most powerful phone on the market, probably, or it's optimizing the S7 during the tests, which it has been known to do in the past. For a slightly different test, we pitted the Galaxy S7 against 5 of the best phones you can buy right now to see how well it coped with opening up apps at speed. We ran our speed test on each of the phones to see how fast it could run through 10 apps. You can watch the results in our video here where it faces the iPhone 6s, Sony Xperia Z5, Huawei IP9, HTC 10 and LG G5. The test found the iPhone 6s was slightly faster than the Galaxy S7 in opening up apps at speed, but only just with it coming 2 seconds behind. The boot up time on the Galaxy S7 took quite a while, which added 8 seconds onto the iPhone 6s time. This is a very particular test and isn't the only way of showing speed, but it shows the Exynos version of the Galaxy S7 is one of the fastest phones you can get, holding its own against all the other big phones. Navigation is smooth on the S7, apps load promptly and Samsung's cleaner, fresher TouchWiz feels more lightweight and easier to manage this time around. Android purists will still kick up a stink at Samsung's insistence on playing with app icons, which are an improvement over the S6s designs, and on bundling in bloatware and generally adding more fuss to the system. I'd rather have pure Android on the S7, with the addition of the always-on display and a couple of other settings, but that's in an ideal world, and Android 6.0.1 Marshmallow runs very well here. Apart from the slightly smarter app icons, another obvious area where TouchWiz has been tweaked is the notification bar, which is now a more pleasing blue-on-white affair. You get the usual array of quick settings here, along with a brightness slider, while swiping left to right on the home screen opens the UPDAE, or Flipboard if you're in the US, news aggregator. This is okay for a general splash of the latest news centered around a few topics you define as favorites, but I didn't find myself visiting it all that often. The good news is that you can turn it off, so you never have to look at it. Those of you who like to cram your home screens full of apps may find the default 4x4 layout of the Galaxy S7 a little restricting. That can be addressed, though. Just hold down on a home screen and you can change the grid layout to either 4x5 or 5x5. The latter option can feel tight on the 5.1-inch display, but just think of all those extra apps you can squeeze in. Samsung's split screen view is also still in full force on the Galaxy S7. Hit the multitasking button to the left of the home key, and apps which can perform the half-screen view trick will have an icon next to the cross button. The annoying thing about this feature is that only a select few apps can actually go split screen. Core apps such as Chrome, Gmail, Gallery and so on are supported, along with a handful of third-party options including Facebook, Twitter and Microsoft's Office suite. While split screen view may be mildly useful for business types on the move, in reality I found very little use for it on the Galaxy S7. Something else I found frustrating was the ability to reduce apps to a floating window on screen. It's potentially useful on the very odd occasion, but because the swiping motion to trigger this is very similar to the action to pull down the notification bar, I found myself repeatedly shrinking apps when all I wanted to do was see my quick settings. Number rage. There have been some improvements in the keyboard department too, with slightly better spacing and next word prediction on offer, but the Samsung board still frustrates. Simple actions such as employing a comma are not particularly easy, and I'd still recommend downloading a third-party offering such as SwiftKey if you do a lot of typing on your phone. Camera. Market-leading camera produces brilliant pictures. All modes supported, including RAW. Low light performance particularly impressive. We've all heard the saying, but is it really true? Samsung certainly thinks so when it comes to the camera on the Galaxy S7. The Samsung Galaxy S6 had a brilliant camera. We branded it the best on the market in 2015, but the South Korean giant has messed with its winning formula. The 16MP snapper which adorned the rear of the S6 is out, with the 12MP offering tagging in for the Samsung Galaxy S7. The camera does at least sit a lot flusher to the body, but alarm bells may be ringing as that drop in pixels sinks in. Don't panic just yet, though. There is just one snapper though, unlike the dual camera setup on the LG G5 and Huawei IP9, not to mention the possibilities of the iPhone 7 also doubling up later in the year, but luckily the S7 is a strong performer. Low light performance is one of the big selling points for all smartphone manufacturers, with everyone boasting about how well their cameras can perform when the lights go down. To that end, Samsung has kept the sensor size the same, but by reducing the number of pixels it means each one is now larger. That allows more light in, thus improving performance in low light and generating sharper, brighter shots. It's also made the lens wider, enabling you to get more into shot, perfect for picturesque landscapes and towering skyscrapers when you don't want the hassle of shooting a panorama. That's only half the battle though, as the Galaxy S7 still needs to take great shots when the light is favorable, and thankfully it's good news all round. The Galaxy S7 and Galaxy S7 Edge are the first smartphones to feature a dual pixel sensor, a technology initially built for DSLR cameras. This gives the S7 faster autofocus, again improving the brightness and overall quality of your shots. The difference is clear to see when you fire up the camera app and hold it up to your subject. Staring at the viewfinder on the screen, your subject appears brighter, lighter and clearer. It's a surprisingly impressive feat, and automatically puts you at ease. Double-clicking the home button triggers the camera app quick launch, swiftly getting you to the snapper without you having to close another app first. Once the app has loaded, you can use the volume keys, as well as the on-screen shutter key, to snap a pic. The volume keys can also be programmed to zoom or to start video recording if you prefer easy access to either of those instead. The Galaxy S7 and Galaxy S7 Edge are the first smartphones to feature a dual pixel sensor, a technology initially built for DSLR cameras. This gives the S7 faster autofocus, again improving the brightness and overall quality of your shots. The difference is clear to see when you fire up the camera app and hold it up to your subject. Staring at the viewfinder on the screen, your subject appears brighter, lighter and clearer. It's a surprisingly impressive feat, and automatically puts you at ease. Double-clicking the home button triggers the camera app quick launch, swiftly getting you to the snapper without you having to close another app first. Once the app has loaded, you can use the volume keys, as well as the on-screen shutter key, to snap a pic. The volume keys can also be programmed to zoom or to start video recording if you prefer easy access to either of those instead. The former provides a meal-friendly filter to help you document your culinary adventures, and the latter improves the stability and visibility of time-lapse video, while minimizing the file size for easy social sharing. Samsung's also added motion picture and motion panorama to the Galaxy S7's camera arsenal. Motion picture is the South Korean firm's answer to live photos, which Apple introduced on the iPhone 6s and 6s Plus. Trouble is, Apple's implementation is far better. On the Galaxy S7 the split second of video capture is often blurred, and playback requires a tap on an icon in the gallery. There's no intuitive hold down for motion like on the iPhones. General picture quality from the S7 is superb, though. Colors are bright and vibrant, detail is surprisingly good considering the drop in megapixels, and lighting is top-notch thanks to the improved low-light capabilities. Samsung has somehow managed to top the camera it put on the S6 with the Galaxy S7's snapper. It's fantastic. Round the front, Samsung has resisted the urge that has seen rivals slap 8MP cameras, and in some cases even higher, on their handsets, keeping things at 5MP. The overly oppressive beauty mode is here again, ready and waiting to make you look like an alien. It's best turned off, or at least dialed down. A genuinely useful feature, though, is the front-facing flash, although you'll note there's no LED mounted on the front of the Galaxy S7. Instead it uses the display to flash a white light at you, for an illuminated selfie in low-light surroundings. Images from the front snapper are good, but lack the detail of rival offerings. It's serviceable, but you'll want to keep your serious snaps for the excellent rear camera. It's interesting to see how the Galaxy S7 camera compares to the competition, so we took the iPhone 6s, LG G5, HTC 10, Huawei IP9 and Xperia Z5 out along with Samsung's phone to pit their performance against one another. You can see some of the results in the video below. We really liked how the Galaxy S7 camera turned out, but it's not always the best for each test. Battery life. Larger battery has led to improved daily performance. Will easily last a day even with heavier use. Power-saving modes work well to help eke out battery life. Every year, with every new flagship smartphone I pray that someone's finally found the battery elixir we've all been craving. So, has Samsung found the holy grail of smartphone technology in 2016 with the Samsung Galaxy S7? No. But don't let that put you off. The elixir is still very much elusive, but the Samsung Galaxy S7 does take steps to try and improve battery performance. First up, Samsung's given us a bigger battery huzzah, cranking things up from the measly 2550 mAh offering in the Galaxy S6 to a far more agreeable 3000 mAh power pack in the S7. Charging times have also been given a boost both wired and wirelessly, with the fastest charge achieved via the wired connection, using the fast charge adapter which you'll find in the box. I ran the Exynos 8890, powered Galaxy S7 completely flat and then plugged it in. After just 15 minutes it had already refueled to 25%, and around 30 minutes in I was at the 50% mark. Things slowed down slightly after that, but I had a fully charged Galaxy S7 an hour and a quarter after it completely ran out of juice. That's a decent performance, and 25% in 15 minutes is perfect for a quick blast before you head out for the night. Meanwhile, the North American Snapdragon 820 powered handset also managed to regain 25% in 15 minutes, 50% took around 35 minutes, and it was full in under an hour and a half. The big question, though, is, does the Galaxy S7 last a full day on a single charge? I can happily say, absolutely. It won't go 2 days. It's unlikely to do more than a day and a half at a push, but it's an improvement over the Galaxy S6, and you can be safe in the knowledge it'll make it to bedtime. With heavy usage, and running some rather intensive benchmarking tests as well as a slug of gaming, music streaming and other activities, the S7 managed to make it from 7 AM to midnight with around 15% still left in the tank. More moderate usage, with a bit less gaming but still a fair amount of music streaming, emails and social networking, saw me getting into bed with around 30% still in reserve. Plus, the always-on screen was, well, always on. That makes the S7's effort all the more impressive, as it still performed better than its predecessor. If you really push the S7, the battery will start to slide, mainly thanks to the luscious Super AMOLED display. My Real Racing 3 addiction is one example of such pushing. with around 10% of the battery falling away during a 45-minute blast. I did absolutely nail the new NASCAR circuits though. I ran the Tech Radar 90-minute Full HD video test on the Galaxy S7, with screen brightness on full and the handset connected to Wi-Fi, with accounts syncing in the background. Starting at 100%, the Exynos 8890 powered S7 dropped just 13% during the video. That left it with 87% in the tank, which is a very impressive result. Meanwhile, our US variant, running the Snapdragon 820 chip, lost 16% in the same test. Both comfortably beat the iPhone 6s, which lost 30%, Sony Xperia Z5, 25%, and HTC 10, 22%, but couldn't come close to the stellar performance by the LG G5, which dropped just 9%, although it struggled to see out a full day on a single charge. The Galaxy S6 produced a similarly impressive result, losing 16% in the same test, but its downfall, battery performance-wise, was in standby rather than during intense activity. The Galaxy S6 produced a similarly impressive result, losing 16% in the same test, but its downfall, battery performance-wise, was in standby rather than during intense activity. The Galaxy S7 is much better at holding onto charge when it's idle. Overnight it lost no more than 10%, and that was with the always-on display enabled. That's partly thanks to Google's new Doze mode, which is built into Marshmallow, but I suspect Samsung's also made some efficiencies of its own. We also put the Galaxy S7 through a 2-hour web browsing test. We ran a web script on the phone, as well as 5 of our other favorite phones, to see which one had the most battery at the end of the test. The Galaxy S7 came out of the test with 48% of its battery left over. That was second place, just behind the HTC 10 that had 56% of its charge. The Huawei IP9 was closest to the Samsung with 43%, while the Sony Xperia Z5 had 40%, the LG G5 39% and the iPhone 6s 22%. Gaming mode offers useful ways to save battery. Can record on-screen action directly. The Samsung Galaxy S7 is a flagship device, so it comes as no surprise to find that it takes movies, TV shows, music and gaming in its stride. While the S7 doesn't offer the 64GB or 128GB internal storage options that were available with the S6, you do get a microSD slot to complement the 32GB of built-in storage. That slot supports cards up to 200GB in size, which is handy seeing as 751GB of the internal space in the S7 is taken up by the system memory and pre-installed applications. With a vibrant 5.1-inch Super AMOLED display and a whole heap of power under the hood, the Samsung Galaxy S7 is an excellent gaming on-the-go device. Games load quickly, run smoothly and look great, with no hint of slowdown. The Galaxy S7 has no trouble running the graphically intensive Real Racing 3, and the new curved design means the phone is easier to hold for extended periods. The big talking point here though is Game Launcher, a brand new feature from Samsung which is debuting on the Galaxy S7 and Galaxy S7 Edge. This puts more power in the hand.